Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton face off in a fiery town hall debate. Protecting the world's oceans from overfishing. And from ping pong to pets, robots take over at a Japan trade show. Africa 54 starts right now.
Good evening and welcome. I'm Vincent Makori. This is Africa 54. We begin in Libya, where pro-government forces are advancing into the last area controlled by Islamic State in the coastal city of Sirte, surrounding the militants after a 5-month campaign backed by U.S. airstrikes, the military says. Islamic State took over Sirte a year ago, exploiting the chaos and violence that have persisted since the overthrow of leader Muammar Gaddafi in 2011. At least 8 pro-government fighters were killed over the weekend as their forces pushed into an area in central Sirte with snipers and booby traps posing the main obstacles to their advance. Reuters reporter on the ground said forces advanced across 2 streets on Sunday but were facing resistance and discovering explosive devices in many buildings. Losing the city would be a major blow to the group, but officials believe some of its fighters and commanders escaped before Sirte was surrounded and may continue to wage guerrilla-style attacks even after it falls. In East Africa, the Ethiopian government has announced a 6-month state of emergency in response to intensifying and deadly anti-government protests across the country. Prime Minister Haile Mariam Desalegn said in a televised address the declaration, which went into effect Saturday, aims to curb recent attacks on government buildings and businesses. Earlier, I spoke by phone with Tegaye Arasa, is a constitutional law expert at Melbourne University in Australia, and sought his reaction.
My immediate reaction, Vincent, was of a surprise, and a surprise because it is not surprising. We have been saying that we have been in a state of emergency for a long time, as Oromos as well as Ethiopians who have been living under a dictatorial regime that has literally waged a war on its people, especially since November 2015. And throughout that time, when they were imposing military rule in Oromia and later on in Amhara region, when they were intervening in the regions with the federal armed forces, with the special force of the federal military, we have been saying they can't do this constitutionally unless they have declared an emergency situation and mobilized the army on that basis by suspending the constitution of the states and the relevant constitutional provisions of the federal government. Or we have been asking that they can only intervene through the federal intervention order that can come from the upper house of the Ethiopian legislature. It's called the House of Federation. Mm-hmm. So when now, after doing all sorts of extrajudicial killings, all sorts of mass arrests, all sorts of burning people in prisons and setting fire in prisons, setting fire on towns where there was resistance, such as in Konso, and after killing civilians, children in marketplaces, in their homes, after going door to door to hunt down people and take them to detention centers, when they finally come to declare emergency, we were surprised because this is not surprising, because this was long overdue.
Now the question is that they have gone ahead and declared the state of emergency. What does that do to the efforts by the Ethiopians who want to push the government hard? Because now legally they can actually clamp down on opposition, they can clamp down on protesters, they can ban all forms of public engagements by the Ethiopians. So does this in any way make things better, especially for the critics of the government, for the protesters?
No, the government has always been clamping down on opposition, on any kind of political dissent, and it didn't need any law, and it didn't stop any resistance. It's precisely because the legal avenues of expressing disagreement, expressing difference, that people have been taking it out to the streets.
But now they have a legal basis, right? So that makes it easier for them to take any action.
There is no legal system now, because once the people have been demanding the respect of the Constitution and the legal order for a long time, and it was the regime which have been acting in complete neglect of the law. And now, when they use the language of the law, they are only using it to oppress the people further. So this legal action now. They can now arrest and search people without any warrant. They can ban protest signs. They can ban any public protest demonstrations and assembling. They have restricted any printing, publishing, and publicizing otherwise of any protest signs, any slogans, etc.
Dr. Detsgai, superficially, the government of Ethiopia could say that for the preceding months, they allowed people to express themselves, but that the people went overboard. They claimed that there have been a series of attacks on government buildings and businesses, and therefore they have kind of found themselves in a situation where they have to take some further action, which, amounts to a state of emergency. Could they appear to have a justification?
No, because there has never been a time when they have allowed any protest, demonstration, public assembly, or association of any type. All sorts of protests have been labeled as terroristic, as something of an extremist act, as something as an external ploy to undermine the Ethiopian government and to commit an assault on the integrity of the constitutional order.
Dr. Detsgai, thank you very much for your insights at this moment.
Thanks for having me.
Well, it was a chaotic day on Monday in Johannesburg as South African police clashed with student protesters demanding free education at the University of Witwatersrand, which had reopened after demonstrations forced its closure last week. The viewers Anita Powell was on the scene when police moved in.
Things are getting tense here at the University of Witwatersrand. Students have been protesting for days, and now the police behind me have brought out an armored vehicle. They've been shooting rubber bullets, and they're throwing stones and bullets our way.
Well, viewers Anita Powell taking cover as demonstrators hurled rocks at shield-wielding private security guards, while police fired rubber bullets and tear gas to disperse the crowd. Demonstrations over the cost of university education, which is prohibitive for many black students, have highlighted frustration at enduring inequalities more than 2 decades after the end of apartheid. Nationwide protests erupted last week while universities were on a study recess, with students demanding all universities be shut down until the government provides free education. Well, Democratic Party presidential candidate Hillary Clinton and her Republican opponent Donald Trump faced off in a tense debate Sunday in St. Louis, Missouri, the second of 3 presidential debates. Now, the debate was held amid a growing chorus of Republicans who want Trump to quit the race after the release of a videotape in which he made offensive remarks about women. But as VOA national correspondent Jim Malone reports, Trump was aggressive from the start.
The tension was evident from the start as the candidates dispensed with the traditional opening handshake. Trump sought to apologize for vulgar references to women on an 11-year-old videotape.
Yes, I'm very embarrassed by it. I hate it, but it's locker room talk, and it's one of those things.
Clinton cited the tape as evidence that Trump is not fit to be president, and the latest in a long list of insulting comments targeting women, Latinos, and Muslims.
So this is who Donald Trump is, and the question for us, the question our country must answer, is that this is not who we are.
Trump kept on the attack throughout the debate, calling Clinton a liar and, at one point, the devil. He also criticized her again for her use of a private email server while she was Secretary of State.
But if I win, I am going to instruct my Attorney General to get a special prosecutor to look into your situation, because there has never been so many lies.
Everything he just said is absolutely false, but I'm not surprised. Really? It's just awfully good that someone with the temperament of Donald Trump is not in charge of the law in our country.
Yeah, because you'd be in jail.
Clinton hammered away at Trump's proposed Muslim ban, while Trump said his plan had changed.
We are not at war with Islam, and it is a mistake, and it plays into the hands of the terrorists to act as though we are.
It's called extreme vetting. We are going to areas like Syria where they're coming in by the tens of thousands because of Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton.
And the two also clashed over Syria and Russia, with Clinton alleging that Russia favors Trump.
Russia has decided that it's all in Syria, and they've also decided who they want to see become president of the United States, too, and it's not me.
I don't know, Putin. I think it would be great if we got along with Russia, because we could fight ISIS together, as an example.
The only positive note came at the end, when a voter asked the candidates to say something nice about each other, which they did.
His children are incredibly able and devoted, and I think that says a lot about Donald.
I will say this about Hillary. She doesn't quit. She doesn't give up. I respect that.
Clinton and Trump meet for a third and final debate in Las Vegas on October 19th.
Well, for more insights on the presidential debate, VOA's national correspondent Jim Malone now joins me in studio. Welcome back, Jim.
Thanks, Vincent.
What an exciting evening it was.
Exciting in some ways, depressing in others, perhaps.
Yeah. Now, of course, the biggest question was, did Donald Trump answer the questions?
Well, he answered it for some conservatives. I think they were cheered by his aggressive attacks on Clinton. But the issue of this videotape we've talked about, the lewd remarks about women that he made 11 years ago, continues to haunt the campaign. And just today, the day after the debate, the House Speaker, Paul Ryan, has said he'll no longer defend Trump on the campaign trail, won't appear with him, and wants to make sure that Hillary Clinton does not get a blank check if she is elected president. Now, the significance of this is he's not withdrawing his endorsement of Trump, but it shows that this civil war within the Republican Party continues unabated. That's probably not good for the party heading into an election 30 days away.
Now, despite, all the, whatever happened with Mr. Trump, did it appear like Hillary had a hard time last evening?
At times she did. I think he was able to put her on the defensive over the email issue, over past statements that she has made on various issues, and, of course, bringing up Bill Clinton's problems in the 90s when some women came forward with allegations against him, trying to relitigate the past, if you will, on the Clinton scandals. That kept her on the defensive. A lot of the hardcore Trump supporters liked how aggressive he was. But I must tell you, we had a moment there, and we showed it, where he said if he were president, he would try to make sure a special prosecutor went after her over the emails. I don't think we've ever had in American history one candidate threatening to jail their opponent.
That is serious. Now, we know there's another debate coming up, but in terms of what we can expect, I mean, what is it this debate achieved that is different than last one, and what else can we expect now?
From the Clinton point of view, probably not a lot changed. She's ahead in the polls. That may even grow as the reaction to the tape grows in the polling data that we're going to see in the next few days. For Trump, though, he may have staved off a complete insurrection in the party by a strong attacking performance. He cheered the conservatives who want that kind of approach against Clinton, and he may be able to stave off those in the party who want to get rid of him because they also know they need his supporters to win their congressional races.
But at the end of the day, it's about winning over those who are not decided.
Yes, I don't think Trump did a lot to win over, for example, women voters who were offended by that tape.
Yeah, that's daft. Jim, thanks, as always.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. That's VOA's Jim Malone, who's a national correspondent. Now, shortly after Sunday's second presidential debate between Democratic Party presidential nominee Hillary Clinton and her Republican opponent Donald Trump, a diverse group of voters at VOA's Washington headquarters gave their impressions of the two candidates. VOA's Richard Green has more on the reaction to the latest round of an increasingly bitter White House campaign.
VOA's post-debate panel brought together people from different immigrant communities in the United States. The majority believe Clinton prevailed in the debate, with the rest either siding with Trump or still undecided.
Her statesmanship is the most obvious aspect of her presentation, and for that reason it's very hard to really consider a candidate like Trump.
I don't believe any of them. That's one point. The second point is that there has been a nationwide media campaign to discredit Trump. Only by demonizing him, they think that they can shove Clinton down our throats.
Sunday's debate was overshadowed by Friday's release of a 2005 video in which Trump spoke about groping women. Women in the VOA forum did not accept Trump's explanation that his remarks were merely everyday private conversations between men.
That's inexcusable action as a man that's going to be representative of a nation where 1 in 5 college women get sexually harassed. Oh, it's just locker room banter. It doesn't matter what it is. It's still disrespectful and inappropriate for anyone, especially a presidential candidate.
But audience member Cliff Lee from China said while he disagreed with Trump's comments, his candidacy represents a more serious issue.
Many of us really think the country is at the crossroads. Where we're heading to? Are we heading to European style, kind of more of a close to a socialist direction? Or especially this year, we feel might be look at the demographics, might be the last year we have a chance to have a Republican president which balance it out.
In a Twitter poll conducted by VOA, just over 2/3 of those responding said they would vote for Clinton over Trump. Richard Green, VOA News, Washington.
Well, we want to know what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we cover. Join the conversation on Facebook. The address is Africa 54, and check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Find me on Twitter at VOA Vince Makori. Coming up, confronting the ocean's biggest threats. Stay with us.
News and notes. This is Living Better.
The latest research shows that getting back to moving shortly after surgery leads to faster recovery and improved outcomes for patients like Marnie Halassa. She's a 49-year-old professional ice skater who needed a hip replacement. Just 3 hours after surgery, her doctors had her up and moving.
I was taking these little baby steps, and then I was walking upstairs, and they said, it's time for you to go home.
Back in her apartment within 24 hours of her surgery, Marnie says that getting back on her feet quickly was also a psychological boost. And there are other benefits.
It improves your cardiopulmonary system.
Rehabilitation Services Director Charlene Tui.
It improves your musculoskeletal system functioning. It addresses your immune system.
Other benefits, says Charlene, better balance and muscle strength, along with a reduced risk for blood clots and pneumonia. I'm Martin Seacrest for VOA's Living Better.
I'm Bill Arcega. I'm the host of VOA's The Correspondents, a roundup of the world's top stories with analysis from our dedicated reporters. It's really a conversation the same way that you would bring a friend to your home and ask them what's going on. And our correspondents will do that and answer those questions through their own eyes.
That appears a false choice in more ways than one.
We can't actually put you there, but we can come pretty close. In 30 minutes, we'll show you the world.
Welcome back. Now, countries safeguard cultural, historical, and national treasures, but only a tiny fraction of the world's oceans are being protected from overfishing. Recently, President Obama designated the first marine protected area in the Atlantic Ocean at the 3rd annual Our Ocean Conference held in Washington. VOA's Caroline Turner reports.
Government leaders from 90 countries, scientists, and environmental activists from around the world gathered in Washington recently for the 3rd annual Global Conference to preserve the world's oceans. About 3% of the oceans are now protected, but scientists say 40% of the oceans will need protection to feed billions of people and employ millions of workers in the future. President Obama urged the audience to fight against illegal fishing and pollution that causes climate change by setting aside marine sanctuaries.
The investment that all of us together make here today is vital for our economy, it is vital for our foreign policy, it's vital for our national security, but it's also vital for our spirit. It's vital to who we are. Dangerous changes in our climate, caused mainly by human activity, dead zones in our ocean, caused mainly by pollution that we create here on land, unsustainable fishing practices, unprotected marine areas in which rare species and entire ecosystems are at risk. All those things are happening now.
President Obama designated the Northeast Canyons and Seamounts Marine National Monument as the first protected area in the U.S. Atlantic Ocean, with almost 5,000 square miles off the New England coast. The site will provide protections for deep-sea coral, endangered whales, and sea turtles. The action follows his decision last month to expand the Papamaukuakea Marine National Monument off the coast of Hawaii by over 440,000 square miles, creating the world's largest marine protected area. The measures will permanently help to sustain the ocean ecosystems and fishing economies in these regions in the face of climate change. Secretary of State John Kerry warned the audience that the world's fisheries are overfished to the maximum and that more work lies ahead.
It's no wonder that most people don't realize that illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing costs the world tens of billions of dollars a year and is linked to organized crime, drug trafficking, and gross human rights violations. Most of our citizens aren't aware that fishing vessels operating lawlessly strip mine our ocean every single day and sometimes rely on slave labor to obtain bigger catches and larger profits.
Actor and environmental activist Leonardo DiCaprio is committed to ocean issues and has given to over 40 countries in the world through his foundation.
As a global community, we must protect and value vital marine ecosystems rather than treating the oceans as an endless resource to be exploited and as a dumping ground for our waste. Oceans absorb about a third of the carbon we pump into the atmosphere, but we've pushed it way too far. The ocean can no longer keep up with our rampant rate of carbon dioxide emissions. Today, our seas are warmer and far more acidic, weakening the shells of marine creatures and destroying coral reefs that we all depend on for life.
The third Our Ocean Conference resulted in 136 new commitments valued at more than $5 billion, focused on the key ocean issues of our time: marine protected areas, sustainable fisheries, marine pollution, and the impact of climate change on the ocean. Carolyn Turner, VOA News, Washington.
Now, illegal fishing is a problem in every ocean, but it disproportionately affects coastal states with limited resources or ability to respond, especially in Africa. Now, check back tomorrow when we will continue a series featuring African participants at the conference from West Africa and East Africa, Ghana, Mauritius, Seychelles, and Madagascar. Well, it's time now for a short break. Still to come on Africa 54. It's Robert Gallo at Asia's biggest track trade show. We'll be right back.
Drogenschmuggel, aber potenziell auch von
called The Dad Broken Promise.
I wanted to present music and a side of American culture that is most important to me, that is a part of who I am. They're going to get some incredible performances. That's one of the things I love, bringing these artists in so you can get to see them do what they do. It's soul music, and that's what music is. It's that which comes from the soul.
Today's youth are not just the next generation of African leaders, they are today's leaders. And this is the time to invest in them, today, not tomorrow. So let's connect, let's engage with each other on issues that will transform our societies. Innovation, leadership, entrepreneurship, things that you're doing to move the continent forward, to make you the greatest generation that Africa has known. It's Upfront every Wednesday, 17:30 UTC, right here on The Voice of America.
You're back with Africa 54. Hello there, I'm Hayley Adams Fitzpatrick. If you've been wondering what's trending, we've got some news for you. A bar by night and a cozy office by day. It's a restaurant and dance club called Social, where photographers, designers and journalists are just some of the many professionals working side by side, often collaborating to expand their businesses. India has emerged as one of the biggest markets in the world for tech-based startups. And as you can see, the workplace is transforming from traditional and hierarchical to relaxed and bar-like. Foreign-based investors are pumping large sums of money into Indian startups. Funding is growing at more than 125%, with an additional $700 million expected to be invested by February 2017. Well, in other tech news, we go to Japan now. At CTech, one of Asia's largest tech trade shows, table tennis playing robot Morpheus is taking on a human competitor. The robot can assess its opponent's playing level and adjust its own game accordingly. If you're not into robot sports, how about a robotic makeover thanks to technology developed by Panasonic? A contactless sensor detects spots on your skin and then prints a customized cosmetic sheet which can then be applied to your face. CTech also had various pet robots on display. These are increasingly popular in Japan, especially as some apartment blocks now prohibit tenants from keeping non-robotic pets. And finally, do you think this massive sculpture looks good enough to eat? I'll think you're probably alone in that. But this is actually a cake. This 1.5 meter high sugar sculpture at London's annual Cake and Bake Show is quite the popular attraction. And its creator, Jackie Kelly, says social media has put the cherry on top. It's helped spread the new cake trends, techniques, and even inspires beginners to get started. One of the show's judges says the hashtag cakes on Instagram is guaranteed to draw plenty of views, adding that tutorials about how to ice and decorate cakes are also popular. Creepy cake, anyone? And that is what's trending.
Well, and that's our show for today. Thanks a lot for watching, and just be sure to continue watching our show on our website at voaafrica.com. That's it for now. From all of us here in Washington, have a good night.
Welcome to the Voice of America's Newswords. Listen to President Barack Obama speaking about NATO and the Ukraine crisis.
As NATO allies, we will meet our solemn duty, our Article 5 obligation to our collective defense. And today I want every Estonian and Latvian and Lithuanian to know that you will never stand alone.
Obligation. An obligation is a promise. It is something one must do because of a law, a rule, or because it is morally right.
President Obama talks about NATO members' promise to defend each other.
Russia took over part of Ukraine. Now Obama says NATO will help defend the nearby countries.
Now, the next time you hear the word obligation, you will know what this newsword means.